Hey everybody, Quentin here. Just wanted to check in with you guys, see how everybody's doing amidst the wild times of coronavirus. And I wanted to shoot this quick video with you today because I wanted to share a couple things with you that has been resonating with me working with my clients throughout the past couple weeks. When all of this coronavirus stuff started to happen, initially for a lot of people, there was just a little buzz in the air and there was a lot of novelty and newness and some anxiety associated with what was happening in the world. And for a lot of people, over the last couple weeks, the anxiety has started to subside, or the novelty has started to subside, and a lot of people are starting to feel a little bit depressed. And when we talk about depression, a lot of people think of maybe those, different, pharmaceutical commercials where the person can't get out of bed or the person's really struggling. And for a lot of people, depression is kind of a continuum, and we can go from feeling just a little bit depressed to a lot of it depressed. And when we feel a little bit depressed, what can that look like? It looks like maybe just low motivation, lack of excitement, low energy, sometimes having a hard time focusing. And given what's going on in the world right now, it would make perfect sense if a lot of people are feeling slightly depressed. So with that, I wanted to create this quick video and just talk with you guys a little bit about depression, what it might look like right now. And I wanted to give you guys 6 really tangible things to think about and things that you can do in order to help yourself and to feel more empowered if you are feeling slightly depressed. There's so much change going on in the world right now, and nobody knows where the finish line is. And because of that uncertainty, it's leaving a lot of people just feeling a little wobbly, just feeling a little unsturdy. We've kind of lost our emotional footing. And having kind of depressive-like symptoms is a very natural and understandable response to all that's going on. Okay, so let's just go through the 6 things. These are 6 things that you guys can do right now in order to help yourself feel a little bit better if you've been feeling depressed. Number 1 is nutrition. When we eat really clean diets, it has a greater impact on our depressive symptoms than actually taking antidepressant medication. And the interesting thing is, when we feel depressed, what we want to do, our initial response is we want to eat kind of junky food. We want to eat sugary stuff. We want to eat processed carbohydrates, because when we eat those types of foods, it gives us a kind of dopamine hit to our brains, and it makes us feel good. It's the opposite of depression, right? Because when we're feeling depressed, we don't have a lot of those natural chemicals kind of firing in our brain like they normally do. And so when we eat junky food, we get some of that. But it's very short-lived, and it eventually runs out, and then we need to eat more of it and more of it to kind of have the same effect. It almost turns into almost like an addictive cycle. So instead of that, I want to encourage you guys, wherever you're at, if you're feeling a little depressed, try to focus on having a really clean diet, as clean as you can. I'm not a nutritionist. I'm not a dietitian, so I don't want to get into that. You guys all know kind of maybe what that means for yourselves. But I just want you to remember that if you're feeling a little bit depressed, one of the best things we can do is just focusing on eating a nutrient-dense diet, and that has a really profound effect on our moods. Okay? Number 2 is really focusing on our sleep. One of the hallmark symptoms when we're depressed is we don't sleep well. Sometimes we sleep too much, sometimes we sleep too little, and our sleep starts to get impacted. So because of that, it's really important that we develop really good sleep hygiene. And sleep hygiene is just a fancy way to say that we have kind of a structure. We have a structure throughout our day about when we're going to go to sleep and when we're going to wake up. So right now, because of COVID-19, a lot of people's schedules are really kind of like all over the place. We might be going to bed at 3 o'clock in the morning and sleeping until 10, or maybe we're going to bed really early and then we're waking up early. So one of the best things we can do when we're feeling depressed is really focus on our sleep. Try not to nap too much throughout the day, so we're getting really good REM sleep at night, and really committing to a solid like a solid bedtime structure or a bedtime routine. Like I'm going to commit to going to bed every day at 10 o'clock, and I'm going to commit to waking up every day at 6 o'clock, or whatever that looks like for you guys. So focusing on your sleep is one of the best things we can do when we're feeling depressed, because when we're feeling depressed, our sleep starts to get out of balance, and actually causes more depression. So we sleep more, we end up feeling more depressed, or we sleep too little, and it can also have we can also have a depressive response to that. Okay, so number 1, nutrition. Number 2, sleep. Number 3 is connecting with our loved ones. There's nothing more powerful than connecting with people that we care about and people that care about us, and letting them know how we're doing, sharing our feelings with people that really matter to us. And you know, if you're living with your loved ones, maybe it's just finding the right time throughout the day to be able to do that. Or if you're single and you're not living with anybody, you know, really being intentional about, you know, scheduling a FaceTime call, scheduling a Zoom call with somebody, and just letting them know, how are you doing? How are you feeling? I just got done doing a podcast with a really good therapist friend of mine, and it just felt really great to connect with him. I got to tell him how I'm doing, got to tell him how I'm feeling. He got to do the same to me. And as soon as we hung up that call, I instantly felt better. Okay? So having the ability, or prioritizing sharing our emotional experience with people that care about us, it's the most important thing. I should have made it number 1. It's the most important thing we can do when we're feeling depressed. Because when we feel depressed, our tendency is to withdraw from people and to isolate. Okay? And sometimes they call this the catch-22 of depression. It's the thing that we need to do the most is the thing that it's the hardest to do. Okay? So if you find yourself feeling slightly depressed, you might have a tendency to withdraw or isolate. Don't judge yourself for that. Just know that there's a need for you to reach out, and there's a need for you to connect with others. And by the way, if you're listening to this and you're not depressed, try to think about other people in your life that might be feeling depressed, and they would probably really appreciate you reaching out to them. Okay, that's number 3. Number 4 is having good structure. As humans, we seem to thrive really well when we have a lot of structure in our lives. Like we like starts and middles and stops. We like boundaries around our time. We like to know that this thing is happening at this time and this other thing is happening at that time. And because of COVID-19, a lot of people have lost their structure. They've lost their routine, you know, and sometimes these routines have been, you know, they're old routines. They've been really, you know, integrated and really part of our lives for a long time. So it's like we're all out of sorts, right? Because we don't have structure, we don't have a routine. So I encourage anybody that's feeling slightly depressed, listening to this, try to develop some structure for your life. You know, look at your calendar, look at your day, Monday through Sunday, and really try to map it out. Really try to plan it out, because a lot of us, we kind of took for granted that we had just a natural structure in our lives. That might have been, you know, going to work from 8 to 5, or, you know, we were going to drop off our kids at this time, or we were going to, you know, have these meetings at that time. And a lot of that has been just taken away. So what we have to do is we have to kind of replace it with our own kind of man-made structure, if you will, okay? Because it's not really given to us anymore. But structure is really important if we want to help ourselves when we're feeling depressive symptoms. It kind of reminds me of when I was first becoming a therapist. I was working in an inpatient residential drug and alcohol facility. It's where most therapists kind of get their hours. And you know, if you know anything about rehab, you know that it is massively structured. I mean, these guys and gals, you know, they get up at 6 o'clock, and till 8 o'clock at night, their day is massively structured. Every hour, every half of an hour, they know exactly where they're supposed to be. Okay, and there's really a lot of science and good reasoning that goes into that. It wasn't because they were just trying to be rigid or militaristic. They know that people that are in rehab, they're often very depressed, coming off of drugs and alcohol, and they need that structure. They need that structure in order to give themselves the most optimal chance of being in recovery successfully. Okay, so we need it too. So if your life feels a little out of sorts, try to think about creating lots of good structure for yourself right now. I promise you're going to feel better if you do. Number 5 is gratitude. Okay, one of the best things we can do when we're feeling depressed is not to suppress our feelings and not to minimize the reality that we are going through a hard time, but we can simultaneously acknowledge those feelings for ourselves, but also reflect on what we feel appreciative of and what we feel grateful for. My friend that we just did this podcast with, same thing. I told him that, yeah, this is really hard for me right now. I'm struggling just like everybody else is struggling, but I also feel grateful for so many things. My life has slowed down a lot. It feels very simple right now. I'm spending more time with my kids. So there's a lot of things that I do genuinely feel grateful for. And when we're depressed, one of the best things we can do is to almost like refocus our minds and start thinking about the things that we feel grateful for. Again, we're not trying to suppress our feelings or minimize what we are feeling or what we're going through, but we want to just kind of like hold the balance of going through a hard time, simultaneously acknowledging the things that we feel grateful for. And when you do this, it might be hard. You might think, gosh, like, I don't really have anything that I'm grateful for. Sometimes we can just say, I'm grateful for breathing. I'm grateful for having air in my lungs. I'm grateful for, I'm here in Southern California. It's a sunny day. It's kind of nice. I'm thankful that the sun is shining. Okay. If we sit with ourselves for a little bit, sometimes we can think about the things that we feel grateful for, and just taking a pen and paper and just jotting that down, spending 5 minutes doing that. Usually when we come out of that, our depression, it will actually change our emotional state, which is really profound and really powerful how our minds work, that if we can change the things that we're thinking about, it can actually impact our moods quite a bit. And lastly, number 6, the thing I want to leave you with is that when we're feeling depressed, one of the best things we can do for ourselves is move our bodies. Now, this is really hard if we're all being quarantined and it's hard to get outside. But if we can just get outside maybe a little bit, go for a walk, maybe go for a power walk, go for a little jog, or even if you're really on lockdown and you're stuck inside and you can't do that for whatever reason, just creating a little movement routine in your house. Maybe that's doing some push-ups or doing some sit-ups or doing some air squats. I'm not a fitness person, so I don't want to give you advice on that. But just trying to move your body. Similar to nutrition, they've done so many studies that reveal that when we're having depressive symptoms in our lives, that movement has a more profound effect than antidepressant medication. It's like our bodies were designed to move, and now it's really hard to do that if we're all quarantined. So we just have to work extra hard at kind of forcing ourselves to do that and finding creative and alternative ways to just make sure that we are giving our body what it needs in that sense of movement. Okay, so those are the 6 things. I hope that's helpful to you guys. And just remember, if you're struggling right now, if you're feeling kind of depressed, it doesn't have to mean that you can't get out of bed. We can all feel it a little bit. If you're feeling any of that, just know that you're not alone. You're not crazy. Given what's going on in the world, it's almost like we should all feel a little depressed. And that's totally okay, and it's not gonna last forever, okay? But these are 6 things that you can do just to make it a little bit easier on yourselves while we're in this tough time. Okay, cheers guys, and I'll talk with you soon. Bye.